And welcome back to the ER. Let's go. Yeah, so we are back with another episode of the ER.
Yes.
And it's been good. We're trying to be a lot more consistent with the ER, and we have a bunch of topics that we want to talk about and cover. So you'll be seeing a lot of the ER moving forward.
Yes, definitely. We'll be talking a lot about how we can pretty much expand ourselves in the entrepreneurial industry, how we can analyze ourselves, how we can grow, and all that jazz. So yeah, I'm really excited about what we have in store together, as well as with you guys, or collectively, I should say, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So today, what is the crisis situation for today?
What could it be? What could it be?
All right. So today we are dealing with how to deal with criticism.
Yep.
And I feel like that's a something that a lot of entrepreneurs, creatives, they have a hard time dealing with. I feel like I really do feel like I know, especially for me, like when I started, oh yeah, a little too hot on the signal. Oh yeah. When I started, I really just, it was hard to deal with criticism because, you know, when you start, you're like, yeah, you know, I'm doing this and I feel like I'm great and I'm oozing with creativity and I'm putting this out into the world, especially like if you started like with social media and putting stuff on social media.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, you were like, yeah, like I'm doing all of this and I'm doing that. And then, you know, that person comes under your post and they're like, just that one color. Yeah, there was this running joke with like photographers where, you know, they would like take out every other color and they'd leave like red or like yellow or like green to make it stand out. And it's so artistic. And people are like, yeah, we've been doing this for the last 50 years.
Hey, you know, but again, that just goes to show you that there's always going to be someone saying something, you know what I mean? No matter what. And if that person sees, you know, a form of work or how you portray your artwork, a lot of times they're going to have something to say, whether it's negative or positive. And I think we should take whatever they have to say and utilize it the best way we can, use it as an opportunity. You know what I mean? Grow. I mean, that's what I would do at least.
Right.
You know, like and sometimes criticism can be hard. Like sometimes we don't want to hear, you know, the feedback, or sometimes we don't want to, you know, accept things from another perspective. And I think sometimes you really have to be humble. That's one of the things that you have to like really look at within yourself, and being humble to try and see things from all sides. And
So. Well, clap it up. But yeah, like being humble is a big thing because there are a lot of people who believe in their own mind and they've created this reality that, you know, what they're doing, like they are good at what they're doing. And I'm not saying that y'all are not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that y'all are not good. But creativity is so subjective. Art in itself is so subjective. So a lot of people believe like what they're doing, you know, is it should just be accepted, right? And when it comes to criticism, you have something you want to say on that?
No, I mean, like I feel like there's a standard for a lot of things within whichever industry you are in. So for you, I feel like, you know, in photography, it's and videography, it's very technical. So there's a lot of specifics and things that you have to know when it comes down to your industry. But I feel like for me as a vocalist or as a performer, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of people who perform, you know, how they want to, and it could be questionable. But then again, they'll say, no, that's my creative flow, or that's what I do as an artist. So again, going right back to it being subjective, right? So, I mean, but again, in your industry, there are standards. So there are definitely things that you have to do, you know, to ensure.
Like again, and that's why like criticism is so hard to kind of do these days, and or engage in or accept. I feel like it's hard to accept because everything's subjective. But also like how to deal with criticism is like, how do you deal with criticizing someone else in your own field, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a two side, like I wasn't thinking of it before, but now I'm like thinking there's like two sides to criticism, right?
Well, I guess you'd have to think of like where the base of it comes from. It's like, what exactly are you criticizing them on? So maybe if you wanted to give an example of a specific thing that, is often criticized in your industry, and then, you can kind of elaborate on if you were to give criticism on that specific topic, and if they were to give criticism to you, it would be probably two different things, or you would find similarities depending on.
Like one thing that is often criticized in, I'll go with photography, right? Is retouching, right? It's one of the big things where it's like, oh, whatever you see on the internet, it's not real. And, no one's skin is that perfect. And
except for mine. I'm joking.
hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey,
makeup does wonders. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I'm not good. Yo, chill. But retouching, it's one of the things that gets heavily criticized. And a lot of photographers, not videographers per se, but photographers, when they retouch, they try to make their subject look like perfect, like just perfect. And a lot of other retouchers and photographers would comment and say, yo, you make them look like plastic, you're taking away the textures of their skin. And so that's one of the things where criticism falls heavily in the photography space, especially when it comes to portraits, right?
Portrait photography specifically.
Like, portrait photography. Again, you could retouch for like wedding photos and family photos, all of that, but also that comes under portraiture.
Okay.
Right. So I've spoken to a few photographers that I know when it comes to their retouching, and for me, how I would criticize their work, I would just basically say, hey, in my opinion, we're trying to bring out that person's beauty. We're not trying to impose a beauty standard on our clients or the people that we deal with, right? So yes, we can retouch. Yes, we can make them look good, but we're just enhancing their beauty. We're not trying to make them look like other people.
Right. And I think because of social media, everything is so, again, we go right back to the instant gratification of wanting to look like, the next model, or having no imperfections, and everything has to be like you were saying, everything has to be perfect. You know? So it's just kind of unrealistic. It makes people fall in love with something that's not real. Yeah.
And I just feel like, man, again, some photographers will be like, nah, I'm trying to make them look as beautiful as perfect. But again, it's imposing a beauty standard that, photographers and social media has set. So it's like, we're trying so hard to make them look beautiful and show other photographers. And that's another thing. A lot of this beauty retouching and stuff, some photographers are trying to make other photographers know that they are really good at retouching. No problem there. But we're looking at the clients, and that's how someone would talk. That's how I would speak to someone who I find, just they're retouching it. It takes away from textures. It takes away from the actual person. And some retouchers make their subjects and their models look different. And you never want to do that with retouching. So when it comes to how to deal with criticism, I've been on the other side of that, where some people would talk to me about my retouching in my earlier stages, because again, I'm trying to make them look beautiful. I'm trying to, I'm so clean. I can make it clean. I could really do that. But then they'll speak to me and they'll be like, you are taking away from the textures, and, you are making them look a little bit plastic, and you are doing certain things that, it's not to say it's wrong, but, they have criticized me on that. And I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning, I was like, yo, who are you? What? Excuse me? What? And I'm like, I was kind of, don't worry, I didn't tell them that.
Not in real life, not in real life.
Chill. Hey, it was in the head. But I had to really take a seat and be like, okay, I understand what they're saying. and we had to conversate. And that's where that humble part comes in, right? Where you got to be humble.
Definitely.
So you have to sit with it and really understand that, hey, they're not saying that you're not good at what you do or your photos are trash or nothing. They're just saying, hey, some things can be improved on, right?
Yeah.
And again, take into consideration how they're talking to you and what they're saying. But again, just don't react like immediately. And that's one thing I'd say when dealing with criticism. Don't react immediately.
Definitely.
Don't be defensive. Don't be like really defensive. Like, what? No, just be like, okay. Right. So like, okay, I've talked about me.
Yeah.
So what about you as a vocalist, as a performing artist? How do you deal with criticism? Can you just share like an instance of that?
Yeah, I've had criticism on what I wear. I've had criticism on how much makeup I wear, how much little makeup I wear, what my hair looks like, how I personally perform. I'm not doing enough, or I'm doing too much, or whatever the case is. And I just really had to take all of it into account and kind of morph it according to what I thought was the best for me. And I think that's also something that we have to take into account. Sometimes, people are not always looking out for your best interests, but there are people who are. And a lot of times we have to just take all of it and say thank you at the end of the day and say, all right, well, I'm going to filter out whatever applies to me and I'm going to use it to better myself. And that's just how, I wasn't always like that. Again, this is obviously through the years of
something that you've learned.
Right. This is something that I've had to learn and I guess dwell on a little bit. And that, I think that comes from self-awareness too. The more self-aware you are of the more self-awareness you have, it really shows, I think your maturity and how much you actually care about your craft. Because I think when there are people that come before you and they're actually able to give you knowledge and wisdom in regards to what they see or maybe things that they know, a lot of times, sometimes the people who are giving you the criticism know something that you don't.
Right.
And maybe, again, we have to be a little bit humble in that respect and just say, all right, you know what, let me just pull back or whatever the case is and not be like so reactive. I know sometimes for me, women can be emotional sometimes and we can be reactive, but I think there's also that self-awareness aspect that we're like, well, we know ourselves, we know. And then sometimes from other people's perspective, they may not know us either. So sometimes, all of those are attributes or, sometimes those are all things that we can relate to. But for me personally, I deal with criticism much better than I did when I was first starting out in music. And I use all of it to help propel me to be better because I am in the position that I am today. And obviously, if I didn't use that criticism from before, I wouldn't be in this position now, right? So, but specifically, I feel like everyone's always going to have something to say. So no matter what, it's not going to change. And it's only the more you excel, the more there's going to be naysayers. The more that you fail, there's always going to be naysayers. The more that you it's not gonna change. It's not going to change.
Yeah. It's not going to disappear. But the thing you have to be mindful of is if there's someone that's always offering you criticism and you feel the way that you feel there's like something off. There's an underlying something about them. There's
red flag.
Red flag. There are some people who can offer criticism and they can do it very well. Right. And there's no undertone to it. Right. But then there are some people that are always like, yo, you should do this. Like, you should stop doing that. You need to do this. You should You should
look out for those ones. Sometimes, again, like I was saying, there a lot of people are not out for your best interest. No. And you really have to move with a discerning mind when you're dealing with people. It's not to be like, who's out to, my haters.
Don't try to don't be paranoid. Don't be paranoid. Don't do that.
Nothing like that. But again, that comes with a discerning mind and self-awareness. And again, also, I learned this one thing where it's like, if someone's not asking you for advice or asking you for criticism, do not give it.
Yeah. Don't.
Because no one asked.
No one asked.
You know what I mean? And that also just shows your self-awareness as well. It's like sometimes people just want they need to learn things for themselves. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think that it even comes from like our parents. Like our parents, a lot of times are like, "Don't do this, don't do that," da 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 da. And then it's like this I guess a trigger that goes off within us, like rejection. We're not able to do this, and this happens, and that happens. But it's not true. It's coming from a good place. But sometimes I feel like we have to learn things for ourselves. We have to experience things and learn and grow. And then that same criticism that we get from whoever, we can apply it. But then again, going back to like it being filtered out so that we can apply it in the best way possible.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
dealing with criticism, you have to understand that it's criticism and it's not rejection, like you say. It's not rejection. People are not trying to tell you, oh, you can't do this, or you're not doing this, or they're not, it's not negative. And I feel like a lot of people, I guess through how probably criticism is viewed socially, that they think it's negative, right? So I feel like another point to how to deal with criticism is taking it away from that negative connotation or that negative association, and understanding that criticism can be positive, and it's supposed to be positive, right? So that, like, these are just a few things that I feel like that's how you should deal with criticism. Like, you have to understand that it's not rejection, right? You have to be slow to react, right? And someone told me, like, you should be proactive and not reactive.
Definitely.
Right? And I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to criticism, they're really reactive, right? They're very like, no, they're very.
But again, that comes from where though? That's coming from a trigger, right? That's coming from
Right.
something that they've probably haven't dealt with internally to make them feel like, okay, well, what I'm receiving right now is not an attack on my character. What I'm receiving right now is not an attack on my abilities, but it's maybe just something that can enhance my ability, something that can take me
Right.
to the next step. So yeah, I think I completely agree. I think if we can acknowledge what it is for what it is, and try not to look beyond, unless it's like blatantly in front of you to,
Yeah.
then
If someone's like really trying to like just come at you for no reason, that's one thing. But in terms of dealing with criticism, we have to pull away from that negative thinking that criticism is bad.
yeah.
Right. And we have to be slow to react.
Yeah.
Right. And we have to understand that we should be dealing internally with what it is that we are afraid of.
So do you have any, so I didn't want to cut you.
No.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions for our audience on like how, because, we can say, don't do this and don't do that. And a lot of times that's not the reality. A lot of times we are going to be reactive and we are going to feel tense about someone telling us, the specifics of what we should and shouldn't do, just especially if we have it in our mind to do it a certain way. What would you suggest that we tell our audience how to either deal with it or accept or, receive the criticism?
Yeah. So again, like, as we said, like, you got to be slow to react. Like, you can feel it. I'm not saying that if you feel it or you feel this kind of tightness in your chest or you feel the pressure go up in your head, like, like you're wrong and you're bad. No, you can feel it, but we have to be slow to react. Yeah. Now you have to account for, okay, I am feeling this way. I am feeling that, but okay, you know what? Instead of me going at it, right? Let me actually see what it is that they're saying.
Okay. So maybe asking questions.
Yes. Ask questions. Like, ask them like, okay, you're saying this about whatever it is that I'm doing. Okay. How do you suppose? So ask them questions.
Right.
Don't attack them directly, but ask them questions. Okay. You're saying this about whatever it is that I'm doing. How can I, or what do you think I can do to be better?
Right. Exactly.
Right. And then another part of that is also, after you've asked them questions and you've had your answers, right? Like, this is going to sound bad, but you just tell them thank you. Just say, hey, all right, thank you for bringing that up. Like, I'll take what you said into consideration and I will try to apply that to whatever it is I'm doing. And if it's valid information, you can take that and you can add that to what it is you are already doing, and then see how it can advance you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think that would be like some tips on how to deal with criticism. What about you? Do you have anything to say? Like a few tips, like at least one or two?
For criticism, don't take it personally, I would say. again, like we were saying, a lot of the information that we receive, it's either our brains take it in and it's automatically put into a negative or positive space. But if we can start looking at things from an objective standpoint and just like receive information and like use our brain as a as a filter for what we need and be like, okay, I need this information from that. Okay, I need this. All right, and these are the things that I can use and are applicable, and everything else I don't need to apply to me, and I won't take it personally and let it weigh on my shoulders as if, I'm not able to do these things, because sometimes criticism can be daunting, and especially in the industries that we're in the music industry, it's tough for a lot of artists. There's a lot of standards that are out there for artists, and even for you in your industry. Again, visuals are highly, I don't want to say judged, but they're highly critiqued. So, so I think accepting the fact that, we're not perfect and that, we can't take things personally. Those are some things that I would say, just, accept it, move on. Even if you want to write it down, revisit it. Maybe it's something that you don't quite agree with, but it's something that maybe later on in your life, you might want to revisit or something like that. You can look at it and say, all right, well, this person had said this one thing to me at this point, or I received this feedback from this one specific thing. Maybe I can revisit it now and see if I've grown, or if I still agree with it. If now with clarity and time, I can actually see it thoroughly, and then you can make your decisions and you can, apply it wherever you need. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way of, dealing with criticism, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel like this is one of the topics that a lot of people need to kind of tap into. And I feel like we should talk about it a bit more, probably in the next episode. With like, we could probably get some questions from you all and see what y'all, how y'all feel about this topic.
Definitely.
And then you move on. But again, biggest thing is don't take it personally, as you said, and be slow to react. Ask some questions,
Humble.
Be humble.
Be willing to accept, say thank you. These are all things that, change your mentality towards something being negative. Like you are already taking steps in advance to ensure that you are in control of yourself because of how you respond, right? It's not necessarily about, again, not being reactive. It's about receiving and processing and then releasing and applying. So,
yeah. So yeah, this is a really nice topic. Like it's something that we can talk from experience, and I feel like we've spoken in a way that is very understanding.
Yeah, and generalized for everyone to understand.
Yeah, I think a lot of people from different industries can take away something, at least one thing from this, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Definitely. So I guess the crisis situation is over. We have completed our crisis situation, crisis situation. So thank you so much for being here with us and coming back to another video.
Yes, we appreciate it so much. And this has been fun. Like, we're so happy bringing this in, more of an introspective lens to certain topics. And then we can sit down and, speak about it and bring it to you guys, have engaging conversation, and then, wrap it up with like questions, concerns, anything like that. And those will be on our social media platforms, so you guys can tap in there.
All right. So thank you for being with us. Like, share, subscribe, follow us on our social media platforms. I am Jakev.
And I am Nichelle.
And this has been
the ER.
All right. Peace.